Hello and welcome to Clan Corner. I have with me head coach Corey Neilson. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Very natural handshake there. That was very, very television-like. I like it. So we've been to have a wee chat with you for a little bit, but first of all, we're 5 months pretty much into the season. It's a good point to get a little bit of perspective on the season. How have you taken your time in Glasgow? Not just the season, but your time in Glasgow. How have you settled being up in Scotland?
Uh, yeah, the transition's been easy. Everyone's really helpful. The apartments, everything. The players are happy, which is
That always
that's
helps.
the biggest obstacle.
Yeah.
Like it makes my job easy and helps me to just focus and concentrate on really what I'm doing. So, in terms of exploring the city or that kind of stuff, that's really not me. I think I've been into the city 4 times, maybe.
We need to get you out in the city a little bit more. The schedule is so busy, though, isn't it? You think you would have time to see a little bit, but
There's
it is
there's
busy.
ample time to do stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just a homebody. I like my job, and we get here, bright and early, and then obviously cutting video, doing practice, and
Yeah.
then obviously off to the gym and back home, and that's good enough for me. I'm
But
happy.
you've got your Scottish connection, though, anyway. Obviously, your wife's from Fife. You met Joanne. You've had family coming to the games, Scottish family. So you already had that kind of Scottish link anyway. They must have been delighted that you're up the road.
Yeah, they're Clan fans now.
Yes.
Obviously they were going up to Nottingham, or when I came with the team to Scotland, they'd go to wherever we were. But yeah, they love it here. They've just been really impressed with obviously the lounge. They just love this place in here.
Yeah.
Coming to experience the hospitality and then going into the game and taken care of, and what they said, and they were treated, obviously, Nottingham treats people well, and they were in the
Yeah.
box and things like that, but it said the atmosphere of being in the crowd and the Clan fans, has been, it's just a different experience for them.
There's been a real kind of culture kind of change over that. Well, I say change, kind of evolution really at the Clan, and it's so nice having people coming over and having this space in the Clansman Lounge has made a big difference to that. But even like the power down kind of moments and stuff, I don't know if you've had a chance to see that, but that's kind of the stuff that's growing organically around the club, and that's kind of new for the season. So it's nice that people have noticed that.
Yeah, and I think when I came in, obviously with Nottingham years back, it was always a good game. They
Yeah.
were always, fairly competitive, but sometimes it was hot and it was competitive. Like the atmosphere was good. And sometimes it was kind of quiet, but now it seems, even on a Wednesday night, it's good and it's loud and energizes the players. I certainly wish we had the opportunity to play a lot more home games, because on the road's been tough.
Yeah, and the numbers, the attendance has been brilliant. Like I'm going to get onto that in a wee minute, because just before we move on, uh, you're Canadian, your wife's Scottish,
Mhm.
and I saw your boys holding England jerseys during the tournament, wearing England tops. So Kane and Logan were wearing their England tops, and in my mind, they're Scottish boys. Logan's called Logan. So what's the excuse for that? And can they? It's lots of fun being Scottish. Can they not just crave a little bit more of that?
I think they just to bother their mother, to be honest. They're boys, and they like to take the piss. So I mean, they were obviously born in the U.S.
Yeah.
She's from Scotland. I'm Canadian, but their whole upbringing was in Nottingham, England.
Yeah.
So they some of the accents that Logan's had throughout his life are just embarrassing.
You do hear that in hockey. There is a kind of sliding accent
it's
as well.
everywhere.
The British guys that have gone and trained in Canada,
Yeah.
they're like, "Hey, how's it going? You all right, eh? Yeah, what was that?"
The best was when the boys came home, and basically when they were in that age where they were trying to get girls, that kind of thing. And so when they were in, Canada, US, they're speaking with an English accent.
Nice.
They come home, they're totally Canadian again.
I like that. That's smart. That's
Good
smart.
job, boys.
Adapting to your surroundings is very smart. How have you found coaching with your son on one team and your other son on the other team? And had that happened before? Was that a first time? Did that happen in juniors and something before when you'd been helping out? And was that a first really at the start of the season here?
Yeah, I didn't stay. I didn't want to be one of those dads who helped with minor hockey. So I didn't really do that, and didn't do a whole lot of coaching. Obviously, throughout the summers, I worked with David Clark's Hockey Academy, and I coach them all the time, and that's just my job. But the first time I ever coached them in a team would have been for GB with Cade. And to be honest, coaching Cade it's not a problem. Cade's he's a real hockey player and he does his thing. And, obviously with Logan, coaching against Logan,
Mm.
I don't like it.
No, I can imagine.
No,
It must be quite a
yeah,
dichotomy of how you feel. The emotion must be really odd.
yeah. And I'm kind of, in my heart as dad, I want him to do well. And he seems to do really well. Like every
I
time he
thought he
plays
played
against,
really well in that
yeah,
Oregon game
he
recently.
generates
Yeah.
chances and he does good. And, I think he just wants to score and then kind of look at me. But he's that kind of kid. But yeah, I mean, I'm really proud of both their careers, how they're developing. But yeah, I would say coaching them has been surprisingly okay because I think just if any dad, I'm sure there's a mom or a dad out there who's coached their own kid. You're a little bit harder on them, anyways, and most of the people understand that you're just coaching. So there's no favoritism there. That's easy. It's just coaching. Yes, was not fun.
Yeah, it's a really interesting situation. So that's an interesting coaching situation you have to face, and a first for this season.
Yep.
This team has been an interesting coaching situation for you because you've had to, it, you know, it, Clan fans have felt year after year it's felt like a rebuild, and it was inevitable when another coach comes in that it's going to be a bit of a rebuild again. But when we said in the Q&A at the start of the season, you coming in with your experience in the league is the closest we can get to it not feeling too much like a rebuild. And there was some faces still there before. How are you feeling now, 5 months into it, looking back on that? Has it felt like a really big rebuild, or do you feel now that you've really got some key pieces in place?
Well, I mean, obviously it's been a rebuild. It's been a challenge. I think we've brought in some good players. I mean, what I promised in that first press conference is that we would be relevant.
Mm.
And I think that was the biggest thing because even back in the day, the team was good and spits here and there, but it's never really relevant in championship games or I think they had one season where they were up there, but it's just didn't want this team to be irrelevant. So making a team that was super competitive in games and that worried and bothered teams. And I think, that's, what I built. It is a team that, competes incredibly hard, sometimes frustratingly hard. And, but that's what I built. It's tough for me to, be angry at players for, competing so hard and wanting to win and, maybe being a bit combustible if things aren't going our way. But, I love the fact that we have some guys with tons of ability. We have some guys who are hyper competitive. But it's just, for as a coach, I just wish it would have bottled and connected, especially early on in the season.
Yeah.
I think we've shown we can play. We've beat Sheffield's, Nottingham's, Belfast. We beat them all.
Yeah.
Cardiff's. But it just hasn't connected consistently enough, which is the challenge with the team.
Do you know what? It's funny that you mentioned those great results, and there has been some great results. And I do think one of the key kind of identities of this team is, and it's almost kind of a blessing and a curse because I think, talking from a fan perspective as well, you're like, this team, you expect them to beat whatever team we're playing against, and that's what's been built, and that's good. And when it doesn't happen, it's really disappointing. Yeah. And for me, like even those great results against some of the top teams, and that's been fantastic. But my favourite result, I think, was recently against Guildford, and there was like a moment where it wasn't really kind of going our way, but the team has that kind of never say die identity, and when they started coming out and taking bodies and taking numbers, and the game opened up. And I thought that's the identity of this team. And do you feel that do you feel it's hard to do that all the time? Are we struggling to reach that? Because that feels to me like that combination of the two things you were talking about, that kind of skill set and that kind of never say die attitude.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that have gone on to contribute to us being in the position we are in the league table. I mean, first off, every single game, it seems to be a different, fault or mistake, or, sometimes we can't score. Sometimes, we're in the box all night because we come out and we're physically competitive and the referees will allow us to be physically competitive. Sometimes we don't get goaltending at key moments. Sometimes, and you're always as a coach trying to figure out, what's what. But the identity was clear. The direction was clear from the outset that we were going to be physically competitive. And, for the most part, we're quite happy, if we take hard, heavy physical penalties. that's a byproduct of us playing the way we do. And typically we kill those penalties.
Mm-hmm.
It's the soft penalties that typically frustrate us, the little sticks as coaches. And what has happened with the group is, over the last 10 games, we had a stretch where we were playing really well. The next bit of games, we don't generate power plays. And, I don't think that's stylistic. I just think it's, maybe the fact that the referees had enough of us going out and,
That's hard. How do you generate power plays? Like you go out and play hard, but I can see how you don't give away penalties. I can see that, but like,
Yeah.
what's the secret to this team? Because this league's becoming a special teams league. That's the difference. Teams are 5-on-5, kind of holding their own, but the teams that are really deadly are the ones that are putting it away. How do you generate more power plays? How do you draw that in without embellishments, stuff like that?
Well, see, that's the whole thing. It's twofold. One, you're consistently moving your feet, you're attacking the net and forcing people to haul you down. You're out there, being a rat and frustrating teams, or you're embellishment, and that happens. I mean, you saw last game against Dundee. There's Martinet who's 6'6", and then there's Sanjay who's 5'6". When they come together and one goes down, and it's nothing to do with I'm not saying they're diving or anything, but it's tough, and I think it's a tough viewing for officials when they see, because we do have a lot of big boys and they play hard, and that's just the way it goes. But
how do you coach that, Corey? And what you've got some big players there? You want them to play this way. Is it a dimmer switch kind of thing? This isn't a digital solution? You've got it. How do you do that?
I'm still working on a solution. We've appealed to senses and just tried to say, like, we're going to play the way we're going to play, and we just hope that everyone would appreciate, as long as we're playing within the limit of the rules. It shouldn't matter if one guy's big and one guy's small.
Yeah.
If you see a stick penalty that we take, we're anticipating that the same infraction that's taken against us will be called. And right now, there's not a lot of consistency. And what I found, excuse me, in the league is, in life, really, sometimes you get the bad end of things, but it usually snowballs around where eventually you get the good end of things. And that's what I'm hoping this next tier, this next group of games, that we get, some positive momentum, a little bit of luck, a little bit of adversity. And you know what? It's crazy. Have you ever seen us score a goal that's going off someone's ass and in the net? It just doesn't happen for us.
No,
we never get that bounce, but you'll see us play like the game where we come out from behind the net, the ice is a little bit wet, it stops and they score. Somebody shoots it and it bounces in our net. And I'm hoping these bounces are going to turn, but the group itself, it's a lovely group of kids, guys, gentlemen who work their asses off. They want to win. They love the organization. They're playing, for the badge. And it's totally true. You see it in them. But this lasted the spell. I can genuinely say that I've seen a lot of frustration in them as a group with the calls and the bounces. And I think it's gonna spin.
Do you think that really spelled out in that Dundee game? That was maybe just the coming together of quite a few things, not even just that game, because interesting you say about that playing for the badge, because it's hard to get that culture when people have just arrived, they're just here this season, they maybe don't come from Glasgow. But it's interesting you say that they're at the 10th anniversary for the OSC Awards, the players and the messages that were going on, they seemed really engaged in that. And there was a wonderful moment, and I told you about this, I know you were talking to former captain Matt Keith and introduced Devon Sidoroff to Matt Keith. It's like Captain Keith, there's Captain Sidoroff. And it was just supposed to be a wee hello, and they chatted for a good 20 odd minutes and about the club and the team and stuff. Like, Matt Keith's such a wonderful ambassador for the club, but you spoke to him as well. Do you see some similarities in those two kind of players? I think there's a kind of a similarity in the way they play, the way they go about their business as a leader.
Yeah, I would have, when I was in Nottingham, I would have stolen Matt Keith any chance I could have. I loved him as a player. I had a great opportunity to speak with him, and he just, his presence and the way he speaks. And Devon is a high quality person. And I think that is the crux of your point, and them playing for the badges. We spent so much time recruiting this summer that, and I've had teams where I didn't really like the atmosphere, or how they played, or what their personal individual identity was. And it's no fun coaching bad people or bad teammates. and the whole focus this year was building that culture of good people who wanted to work together, play hard. And then once you found those people, to establish a leadership group that could, point them in the right direction. And I think, Mike and I lead from the way we lead. And then the captains and the assistants, they do their thing, and everyone else just seems to be in order.
Yeah.
And there's really no way anybody can go outside of that, because it just gets held together.
Joe, it's really interesting. I think like in previous seasons, we've had a lot more things going on off the ice. And in this season, it really only seems to be the ice plant going in and rumours around why that's happened and stuff. And it's just the process. It's all been in that. But that seems to be, and it's nice that that's the focus for a change, or the distraction for a change. We've really had no issues at all with like the playing staff and how they bonded together, no kind of dramas that way. And that's not the norm, is it? Would you say in your experience that that's a normal season? Does this feel like kind of near the top of kind of camaraderie, considering when you're in the league? It's easy when you're at the top, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's very easy. Just even to speak to players. Oh, it's a great group of guys, love boys, this and that. And it's easy when you win.
Yeah.
And you can always tell that these teams who win have, oh yeah, we're connected, football, yeah, we love each other, yeah, it's awesome. But normally, traditionally on bad teams, and I would say we're a bad team, but standings, we're not a good team.
Yeah.
Those teams aren't as connected and aren't as the fellowship that just isn't there in this team, in spite of circumstances where we haven't won early, or it just hasn't been good enough, or it hasn't connected for us. It's stayed together remarkably, in the atmosphere and the way they treat each other and the positivity they come in with every day. It's it's great to know.
So this is just a kind of final, just to kind of wrap up with this kind of running now, and obviously the target is now is making those playoffs, and it's the wonderful thing about hockey is you can still have your best season at almost any point. Is there any kind of changes that you've had in mind coming forward? There's a raft of home games to be played. You said that's going to help as well. Is there any changes that you've kind of things that you've kind of changed with the team, or is it just a case of just getting the stuff that you see in them that's good and encouraging that more?
That's a great question. I would say that the group itself is, we've gone down the pathway, which is, how I built. There was a little bit of a difference of, tactics throughout a little spell. We decided, with our group, we were going to move it into a different way. We've moved into that direction. I don't see it changing. They're pretty connected on how they play, and I think going forward is just. There's going to be little tweaks to lines and this kind of stuff, which we've already done, and you'll see tomorrow, or see when it comes out. But as a group, I think we have our directional line, and it just kind of from here, we're hoping it connects.
Yeah. That's exciting to see. There's been some great deep pairings and great skill there. Some of the goals this season have been some of my favourite goals that we've seen at the club. I guess we're just wanting more of it, aren't we? And that's the way to go.
Absolutely.
More of it, please.
and that's the toughest thing is finding goals and when we're not scoring. And I think that's something we're going to have to address moving forward.
Yeah.
But the guys, they try and score, and sometimes it goes in. And I think it's just a challenge of them, making the most out of their opportunities and staying positive and confident. And if you're not scoring, that's another thing. I'm not a psychologist, but I have to bring them up and keep them encouraged. And they know that at times they're not scoring, and it frustrates them. You'll see, if you're a fan and you're out there and you see a guy you've watched him for the whole season, you see him, he normally has white tape on his stick, and now he's got black tape on.
We'll be looking out for that.
When he's switching things up, his brain's in an absolute.
They never get the stick credit for all the goals going in. It's always
it's these kind of things that from experience you see it happening, and then you have quiet words and bring them back up. But it's a group that's. I think if it connects and gets together, it can do, thing in terms of our ambitions and goals. It is to make the playoffs, obviously, get in to do a great job, but it's to continue to win, and start to win consistently. And I think we're on the path towards that, but it just has to connect.
Yeah, well, everyone can see it's a team that can beat everyone in the league, and it's just a case of making that more the norm as well. Thank you very much, Corey. Appreciate your time.
Another hand.
Yeah, nice job.